Game over. Game over. Lights out. You've just been completely obliterated publicly. With
Cool.
your wait, you've been caught. You've been folded like a chair, caught with your pants down.
Cannot overtalk each other, right? So take turns, or the conversation's over. Jrobin, you can ask Jarek a question, but you cannot cut him off when he tries to answer. Okay, is that fair?
I'm just that if Jared doesn't want to speak to me, he doesn't have to. I'm asking him right now. Are you willing to answer the question as
Okay,
to
what
whether or
is
not
the
you can be
question?
neutral towards God's existence? Um, that you can't. So I asked you earlier if you were understood, if you understood that I made it clear to you that you cannot be neutral towards God, and the reason I gave for it. Now, either you didn't understand, or you disagree, or if you want me to
Can you
restate it
explain
again,
it
I
to me? What
can.
do you mean by being
Yeah,
neutral to God?
neutral towards God, or neutrality towards anything really is just that you don't hold to the proposition being true or false. So,
Okay,
for
can I
example,
ask?
to say that you're neutral towards the fact that I'm holding something in my hand, you're saying that I neither affirm, or saying that you neither affirm nor deny that there is an object in my hand that I'm holding. Okay.
So the thing is, I'm not
Now, when it
neutral
comes
to him
to,
because I don't believe in him. So I
okay,
can't
that's
be
fine.
neutral to
Listen,
something
listen.
I don't think
When it
believes.
comes to God, I'm not done yet. When it comes to God, God's existence, you cannot be neutral towards God. Okay, because you have a
I'm
metaphysical
not.
outlook. You're not neutral. Okay.
I'm not.
Well, then
I don't
well, that's
believe in
good.
him. I don't think he
Well,
exists.
you were expressing something. You were expressing, it, at least that was the implication, so a position of neutrality. So you're not
In
neutral
what
towards
way?
God's existence?
I don't
Well,
think
that's what
God
it seemed like to
exists.
me. It seemed like that to me
I
because
don't
you were
think
trying to
God
you were trying to
exists.
compare it. You were comparing. Well, I'm asking you if you're neutral, that you neither affirm nor deny God's existence. You said you're
How
not
can I be
neutral.
neutral to something that I don't think exists? Can you
You
answer
can
me that?
not think something exists and still be neutral towards it. And
How?
also you can also not think something exists and not be neutral. So that doesn't determine whether or not you're neutral, not believing in something.
Repeat what you just
Maybe you're
said,
not aware
Robin.
of that.
Repeat what you just
Yeah,
said.
not believing
You're
something does
no,
not
hang on.
entail necessarily ipso facto one way or another as to whether or not you're neutral.
So I think you said you can be neutral. So are you contradicting yourself?
I said you can't be neutral. Jarek seems to agree with me, but it doesn't seem like he understands what neutrality is. Or he
But I
doesn't
thought I
seem to
heard you say
understand
I thought I heard
that
you
not
say you
believing
could
in
be
something
neutral.
doesn't necessarily entail one way or another
Hey,
that you're
Jay,
neutral.
can you describe or define
I
neutrality for
just
us?
defined
What is it?
neutrality, that you're neither, I just defined it, that you neither affirm nor deny a proposition. So
Okay.
you neither affirm so you don't assert that it's true and you don't assert that it's false.
Can you give me an example of an assertion
Yeah, I gave one earlier. So if I present you with a proposition that there's something in my hand,
Jay. No, you're not even
you weren't
letting me get my
listening, Jeff. That's the problem. You weren't
you're not
listening. So that's why that's why I'm being like
Jay,
this. So listen, I'll
you're in
explain
my
it to you.
Jay,
Jarek, I'll explain it to you.
all right, Jay, I've just muted you because you're in my room and you've not even let my get my questions out, and you're over talking me because you assume you know what I'm going to say. Now, if you want to act like that, I'd just soon not have you on my stage. If you want to listen and have a respectful conversation, I'm going to be able to complete my sentences. Okay? Do you understand?
You can respond and agree or disagree and have a civil conversation.
Do you
Go ahead, Jeff.
understand,
Go
Jay?
ahead and finish. I was muted this whole time. Go ahead. Like I was muted.
Y-
So you muted me.
Well,
So go ahead.
yeah. Usually, when someone pauses, that means that they want you to.
Yeah,
So,
Jeff, go
do
ahead.
you understand? Do you understand? That's a
Yeah, I
question.
made it clear to you already.
No, I made it clear to you what I'm saying.
Okay,
That if
Jeff,
you're going to interrupt
did you
me,
want to finish your sentence, or did you want to continue talking about, this issue?
yeah, I'd like to know that you understand that you're not going to come in my room and
Of
bully
course,
me
I'm
and
not
over
bullying
talk
you.
me.
I'm not bullying you. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah.
I have a
So
question,
Go ahead,
Jay.
now,
Jeff.
can
Why
you
do you
get
talk with so much?
yeah, can you give me an example, please? And maybe I wasn't listening. Maybe I have a life and I had something else. I was distracted for a moment. And I apologize if that I'm making you so hard on you to go and repeat something, but hey, can you give me a good example of something that I could be neutral about? Do you have something in one of your hands or not? Is that the example?
Yeah. So the proposition is, I have something in my hand. Now there are two truth values to that proposition, but there are more than two attitudes you can have toward that proposition. Okay. So the two truth values are false, or sorry, true or not true. True or false if you take false to be not true. Okay. Now, You could have an attitude towards that proposition that is neither true nor false, right? So you could say I'm neutral in the sense that I neither affirm the truth nor do I affirm the falsity of the proposition there is something in my hand. That is what neutrality is taken to mean in this sense and in pretty much every other sense. So somebody uses neutral in this context. So
Thank you.
Jarek,
So,
it seemed to be
well,
the case
hang on,
that Jarek.
hang on. Oh, you're talking to me now. You're not talking to Jared. You're talking to me now. So thank you for defining neutral for me. So
Mhm.
it seems like you're saying that you can be neutral about things that don't have large impacts or large inferences
No,
on.
no.
Oh, okay. So I can be
Things can have a
neutral
large
about.
impact on things. It's not to mean you can't be neutral.
Okay, so I can have a neutral uh, attitude and a neutral opinion on whether you have something in your hand or not, but I can't have
Yeah.
a neutral opinion on whether or not God exists. So can you
Not if we're
explain to me
conceiving of
why?
God in this, not if we're conceiving of God in the sense that He is a metaphysical ultimate that all things strive and depend upon, and that is going to be
Why?
the basis of all things.
So can you tell me? Can you tell me why that must be that
Yeah.
God is this metaphysical thing that all things depend upon? Can you explain that?
Well, that's not. Well, that's a different issue from whether or not you can be neutral. I thought you were asking me about neutrality. Sorry, do you want me to explain to you why you can't be neutral, or do you want me to go into how I know God exists?
No, I just want. I'm wanting to know if you could explain to me how it's okay for me to be neutral about whether you have something in your hand, but I can't be neutral about whether God exists because you said that He is the metaphysical foundation, and all things have to flow through
I
Him and
said,
exist through Him, right? Something along those lines. And I'm trying to figure out why that must be. Why is it
oh
that
no,
all
I
things?
didn't say that. I didn't claim that God existed. I said that you cannot be neutral if that's how we're conceiving of God. Those are two different things. Okay. I
So
do
why
believe God
can't I?
exists, but you need to be able to focus on what I'm actually saying, right, and
So
focus on
why
the
can't I be
conversation that we're
neutral?
having, right?
Why can't I be
Okay.
neutral
So
about
you
God,
can't
but
be
I can be
neutral.
neutral
Yeah.
about the
So
thing in your
you
hand?
can't be neutral. You can't be neutral towards God because God is in the category of a metaphysical ultimate. Okay. And everyone who's operating in the world, okay, meaningfully, intelligibly, they're predicating, okay, they are weighing facts and outcomes and consequences and this, that, and the other. They're doing all of this, which is what we typically do in the world. If they're doing so meaningfully and intelligibly, okay, then they're operating under a metaphysical framework. Okay, there are certain assumptions that they're making. There are certain preconceptions or presuppositions that they are holding to about the nature of reality, the nature of truth, falsity, the relationship between facts, okay, necessity, possibility, and how that's distinct from what it's not, right? They're all holding to answers to questions as it pertains to their nature, okay, if they're doing so meaningfully, okay. Now, those questions, because they're answers to questions, it means they're going to be propositional, right? If you ask me why X, Y, Z, I'm going to tell you because something is the case, which is an affirmation of a proposition. Do you accept that, Jeff?
Yes.
Okay. Now, whatever proposition that is going to constitute your metaphysical framework. Okay. Because you're answering questions again as it pertains to the nature of reality, the nature of truth, possibility, etc. As I named out earlier. Okay. Right. Your
Ontology.
ontology, your worldview, your metaphysics. I take those to be synonymous in in this conversation. Okay. So when we're talking about that, whenever you're answering that question, you're going to have an attitude as to their nature. Now, that attitude is either going to be the affirmation of God's existence, which is going to constitute the creator creation distinction, where God exists and He creates creatures like us, you and me, and we all depend upon God, or it's not going to be that. Okay, so in this case, we have a dichotomous situation. What you affirm is either going to be the existence of God and subsequently the creator creation distinction or not. Okay, in each position, because it's propositional in nature and it's going to be the second and the third law of logic, really all laws of logic we're going to be invoking here, but we're saying that there's two positions versus the third law, and and that the positions are going to be mutually exclusive with each other, the second law. Okay, and so with respect to that, the God position is going to be the denial and the negation of the God of the not God position, and the not God position is going to entail the falsity of the God position. So, which position are you in, Jeff? Well, actually, no. Do you understand and accept now that you can't be neutral?
No, no, that was a bunch of
Well, you
words
accepted
and
earlier that you have a certain attitude towards the metaphysical nature of reality, which is going to be a propositional attitude, which means
Why
that
did why did
if you accept it as a propositional attitude and you accept the classical laws of logic, then there is no
so
escaping it
why
at
does
this point. So the
why
only thing you could say is that you're not operating in the world meaningfully.
does intelligibility depend upon God?
That's not an answer to the question, or that's not an issue that's relevant to what we're talking about
Well,
right
I'm
now.
not answering your questions. You're in my room, and you said that
Well, if you don't
intelligibility
want to answer
depends.
my questions, you don't want to have a conversation. I don't need to
Oh,
be here, right? I
dude,
could
I'm
just
gonna use
leave.
that with you, man. We're gonna
That's
use that
fine,
Right?
James. I don't
question.
need to talk. I
You're a
don't have a
hypocrite.
need
So
to talk to you. So look, Jeff, Jeff, Jeff,
you still not answered
so
my
Jeff,
question, right? You still
Jeff.
not
Well, you
answered
haven't
my
answered
question.
my question. I asked you if it's clear to you now that you cannot be neutral towards God.
No, it's not
Is it
clear.
clear to you
No,
now?
it's not.
Okay,
No,
so
it's not.
what is not clear to you? Because you accepted earlier that you have an attitude as to the nature of reality, which is going to be propositional, of course, because it's answering questions about the nature of
Um,
reality. You're affirming things that
I
are
tell you what,
already accepted.
I'm really dumb, Jay.
Okay.
I'm not a learned person like you are.
You're not
So
dumb,
Well, I don't
dude.
think
You're
you're
not dumb.
dumb.
can
I think this is
can you
pretty
break
clear, and this is easy to understand,
can you break
actually.
it down for me this way? Like
Yeah.
in plain English, why is it okay for me to think that I can be neutral about something being your hand, and I cannot be neutral about whether a God exists. Now, unless you're defining, and you are defining God specifically as some metaphysical thing, right? So I got that. So you're saying in that terms that we all have to have some basis for our reality, I think is what you're saying. That we all start to believe that reality begins
Well,
at some
it's the
point.
case that you're
Is
not
that
neutral, right? If you're operating in the world meaningfully, then you're not neutral because you have because
you're not following me? You're not following me.
appealing to a metaphysic is going to be a necessary condition
Yeah, I'm
towards
agreeing with you. I'm
meaningful
agreeing with you.
communication and operation
You're
in the
not following.
world.
You're
So
not following the conversation.
the only escape
You're
you'd
not
have is to
following.
say that you're not.
I'm agreeing with
I'm
you.
not clear. Then
You're
please
not
explain to me
following me.
what you're saying.
Dude, stop
Maybe I'm not
Yeah,
talking
following
when
your train of
Jeff's
thought.
talking. Stop overtalking each
I'm
other.
agreeing with
Yeah,
you.
I'm answering his questions,
I am
James.
agreeing with. I am trying to restate back to you what you're saying,
Okay.
and partially agreeing with you, and you're not hearing me, and I don't know why. So what you're saying is that every person has some basis of believing that to some extent they exist, they ground their reality and all of their logic in some metaphysical fact. Whatever that is, it's grounded. And for you, you're defining that as a God. Am I correct?
No, I'm saying, well, you're partially correct. I'm not defining any. I'm just saying that God. I'm just saying that God is in the category of something that somebody could hold to with the, with respect to metaphysics. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that God exists at this moment. I'm saying that what we're talking about,
Yeah.
in case it wasn't clear to you, is
Again,
simply whether or
you're
not
not
you
answering the
can or cannot
question.
be neutral.
No,
Okay.
you're not answering the question. So I got you. I got you. So again, to get there, I'm trying to figure out what you're saying. You're saying that every person has to have a grounding, a metaphysical grounding for their logic and for their belief system. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm not specifically talking about any worldview though.
I didn't say you did. I didn't say you
Okay,
did.
go
But
ahead.
that what you're saying, a metaphysical grounding of their truth claims, so their life, their worldview, right? Okay. So now, please tell me, um, why
So, do you accept that you
why
can't be
doesn't
neutral?
why? No, I do not, because I don't understand, and I still want you to answer this question.
Okay, so I'll explain
Why
to you why you can't
does
be neutral
what
again.
what
I'll lay it out for you step by
Jay
step.
Jay, hang on. You're just trying to shift the burden. You want to put
No,
it
I'm
back
not.
on me, and
I'm saying I'm
okay,
gonna present my line of
in
reasoning
very
again, and I'm going to give you an opportunity.
in very simple words, help me out. Why can I not be neutral about this God? I got that, but
Mhm.
the next question is why does this intelligence? And I would agree with you that we have to have some metaphysical foundation for believing that we exist. We could be brains and bats. I don't care, right? So there's some metaphysical something there. Why does that intelligibility depend on your God?
So you're not neutral
That's a question. I don't know where you got non-neutrality out of a question.
because you said
You're
you understand.
You're dodging now.
You understand my case for non-neutrality. Do you accept it or no?
I do not understand your case for non-neutrality.
You
So
told. Well,
I
I
asked
thought you said something to the effect that you understood it. That's
no,
why
the
I
first part of my
remember.
The first part of my question was, please explain that part again. I understand you're saying something has to be metaphysically foundational. I got that. I don't understand why I can't be neutral about the existence of this God.
Yeah,
And,
you say, so like every single time you keep saying this, I try to interject and present it because you just been repeating yourself for like the fifth time, and I haven't got. And then when I try to interject and say, okay, I understand your point, I'm trying to make the case for it again. Then you tell me I'm interrupting, and then you say the same thing over again, right? So I'm gonna present the case to you again, and then and then I'm gonna lay it out for you. If you disagree at any point, you can let me know. Okay. So the first thing I said was that intelligible operation and predication, etc in the world is going to require that the person doing so is operating under some sort of a metaphysical outlook or framework, their outlook on the world with respect to its nature. Do you accept that? If not, I can argue for it via analogy. Did you hear what I said, Jeff? I asked
hey,
you a
got
question. Did you
yeah,
understand it?
I got. No, no, I'm not dodging. I'll be back. My son is here for a visit. He's just getting ready to leave, so I need to go say goodbye to my son, and I'll be back. So I apologize for the horrible timing here, but family calls, and I will be back.
All right, no problem. I'm probably I have to do some things later today anyway, so I'll be. You can't be neutral
No,
for the
no,
reasons I said
no.
earlier.
Before you
I'll just
do
say
that, just tell us
I'll
what you
say
mean by God being
I'm gonna lay out
necessary
again
for
for. I don't
intelligibility.
know who's talking in the background, but somebody can moderate, please. Um, the reason why you can't be neutral again for everyone here who's listening. Okay, I'll break it down. Everyone has a metaphysical outlook. Okay, if they're operating meaningfully, intelligibly in the world, predicating, they are doing so with respect to a metaphysic. Okay, this means that they're operating under some assumptions as to the nature of reality, the nature of truth, the nature of and how it's distinct again, of course, from what it's not, possibility, impossibility, necessity, etc. They're operating under some metaphysical assumptions. Okay, and because they're assumptions, because they are affirmations about things about the world and its nature. Okay, whatever that is going to be in one of two categories by virtue of the law of excluded middle. Okay, is going to be either the affirmation of God as that which is ultimate, or the affirmation of that which is not God, or the falsity of God's existence. Okay, the non-existence of God. I'll put it. Okay, so those are the two positions that can be had. Those are the two positions that are possible, and those are the only two positions that are possible with respect to what you're going to hold to. Okay, in this context, there's a God position and there's a not God position. Okay, you cannot be neutral towards God.
When you
Yeah,
say
okay,
God
so
is
what
necessary,
so when
what do
you
you mean?
say
So that's essentially that's the essence of it. Okay. Um,
Yeah,
for
I
any
know
atheist,
you can hear me, right? So when
this is
you
what
say
atheists
he's necessary, what do you
routinely
mean?
do. This is what atheists routinely do.
Yeah,
uh,
so you just
They'll
don't know
pretend
the
like
answer
so
to
they'll
the
when
pretend like they can
question.
be
yeah,
That's
neutral.
good
They'll
that
it's a
pretend
everyone,
like they
simple
can be
yeah,
question.
neutral.
it's
I don't
great
know
that
who's talking
everyone
in the
looks at the
background.
Reality.
question and understands that
One at
you
a
just
time.
don't
Haiti or
answer
Jeff,
the
can you
question.
moderate,
So
One
please?
you
at a
use
I
the
don't know.
time.
word,
One
There's
at
like
no,
a
somebody
time.
cutting in and out. I don't know what's going on in the
Altoid, I
background.
think you had a question. Do you want to repeat the question for Rob?
yeah, so I just want to
I'm not
repeat the
interested in speaking
question,
with
but
Altoid right
that's
now.
fine. We'll just
Oh,
turn you
so
down
you
a bit.
only
But
talk to people,
the question, right, is when you say something is necessary, I just take it that like
Well, if there's no one else who
it
wants to ask,
refers
if
to
there's
a
no one
certain
else who
modality.
has a
So when
question
you
about
say
what I'm
that
saying,
he's
does
Just
that
leave,
necessary,
Robin.
which
yeah.
Robin,
modality are you
just get
Yeah, I
referring
have a
to?
quick question. I just wanted to know.
Like
Uh,
I'll make this simple for you, J. Robin. Are you
is that
referring
it?
to logical necessity? Are you referring to metaphysical necessity? Are you referring to epistemic necessity? Nomological necessity? Which is it?
All
He's
right. Is
gonna
that
not
all? Is that
answer
all?
it.
Is that it?
He's
Is that
gonna
oh,
everything
that
that
was
Yeah,
everyone
all.
has
I
so
to
you
got
evade
a
just
say?
the
don't
quick
know,
question.
right?
question.
From
So
He
you
doesn't
just
know
non-neutral?
the
don't
Because
know.
answer.
I made it
Right,
clear that I wasn't
that's
going to
good.
speak to
But
them
I
already.
just take
Then
necessity
then leave,
simpliciter to
dude.
not be referring to anything. So it's very good to see that
All right.
you
So
just don't know
we
what the hell
understand that
you're
you cannot
talking
be
about,
neutral
right?
towards the
And that's
existence of
that's
God,
No,
correct?
we
fantastic
don't
because
understand
You
you
that.
wouldn't
understand that?
understand what you're talking about
You
because all
understand
you
you
do
cannot
is
be neutral
gibberish
towards the
and
existence of
rhetoric,
God?
right?
We
And it
don't.
We all
isn't
understand that?
really substantive because if you did know what you meant by necessary, you would understand that it would be referring to a certain modality, right?
Okay. So
Or
does
maybe
everyone
you could
understand
help
that
me
what we're
understand
talking about?
when you use
No.
the word
Not necessary.
necessary
Like God
without
is that you
referring
cannot
to a
be neutral
modality,
towards God.
what you mean, right? Could you do that, J. Robin? Could you Could you
There's a lot
help
of
us
background noise
understand
going on in the
what
background.
necessary means outside of a
Yeah, if you keep
modality?
muting
Can
me,
you
I'm
do
not
that
gonna.
for
I'm
us,
not
J.
gonna.
It's
I'm
Robin?
not
because you
gonna
keep
Just
say.
leave.
interrupting. You
Oh,
keep
so you can't. You
No,
can't.
I'm waiting. I'm
If,
waiting to
if you
hear.
don't
So
know what
I want to
you
make. I
mean,
want to make sure it's
you
clear
don't
that
even
everyone
know what
understands that
you
you
mean.
cannot be
So
neutral
when
towards
you
God's
use
existence,
We
necessary,
right? So
you don't
disagree with
mean
I
you,
made it clear also
what
that
it is
I
you're
don't
saying,
speak
right?
to trolls, right?
and
So
we don't
um
agree with you, J. Robin. We
so
disagree, J.
Yeah, J.
Robin.
Robin, this
okay.
is
Be
clearly a
So
Yeah.
on what basis would you
So
say
I
that you
just
can be
I don't
neutral,
understand why J.
that you can
Robin
be
just can't
neutral towards the
admit that when
existence
he
of God?
uses the word necessary, he can just tell
There's a
us
lot of
all.
background noise
He
going on.
doesn't know
Can
what
we
he
get some
means,
moderation?
right?
Maybe there are open mics or something, but there's a lot of background noise.
no,
yeah. So J.
dude.
I
Robin,
can't
no,
hear
one
coherent.
person is talking and you're over talking them. That's what's
Yeah,
going on.
Yeah, but I made it clear I'm
Yeah,
not
J.
interested in
Robin.
speaking
When
with him
I'm
already. So
talking,
if
you're
he's the only
listening, right?
one who wants to speak,
So can you
then
just help
I'll
us
just
understand what you
I'll
mean by
remove myself out of the
necessary?
conversation.
that's fine.
just
If you don't want
So
to
is
talk
leave,
to
he
J.
Alto,
is
you
Rob.
Altoid
can.
the only one who's interested in speaking right now? Because I made
If
it
you don't
clear I'm
want to
not
talk to
talking
Alto,
to
you
him.
can talk to me, and I'm going to ask the same question. How do you draw the necessity claim from
So is
intelligibility, depending on God?
this is
If you
not
don't want
about
to answer the question,
intelligibility.
I want a
I'm talking about
confirmation.
whether or not you can be. I asked a question and I'm waiting to hear an answer. Does everyone
Oh,
understand
I
that you
asked the
cannot be
question
Hold on,
too,
let
but
neutral
him
we're never
talk. Let
going
him
to
towards
get
talk.
an
God?
answer.
Let him talk. Go ahead, Jay.
Do you understand that you cannot be neutral towards the existence of God?
No,
I
we
don't think
can be
everybody
neutral.
agrees. I
Okay.
don't think everybody
We don't
agrees with
agree.
that.
Okay. So do you have a rebuttal to what I said?
Yeah, I can be neutral. Anybody can be
That's
neutral.
not a
They don't have to
rebuttal. That's a
accept.
restatement of the
Well,
It is.
claim.
you want a why? Do you want a why we can be neutral?
Yes, go ahead, Io.
Yeah, so I don't see why I would have to pick a side anyways. I can be neutral about anything, right? It's a
That's the
personal
argument from
preference. So,
ignorance.
Here's where
okay,
I'm
so you're saying
neutral.
that, and why is that an argument from ignorance?
You're saying I don't see why something can be the case, therefore X, not X is true.
Well, I
This
said I
is
don't
why
Okay.
I'm
care.
neutral.
I don't care. It's neutrality.
No, but so maybe you didn't.
That's
I don't know if you just
indifference.
came in
That's
here or
not
not,
ignorance.
but
That's
I made a case earlier.
indifference.
I made a case earlier as to why you cannot be neutral.
That's
Here's why
Um,
indifference.
I'm
Though.
neutral
so did
on
you
the
understand
existence
the
of
case as
God.
to why you can't be
I
neutral,
wasn't here
or
earlier,
did you need
so
me?
you'd
I'm
have
sorry.
to.
Did you need me to repeat the case for
Well,
why
I
you can't be
wasn't here
neutral?
earlier, so you'd have to start fresh.
Okay.
Excuse me,
Everyone
can
who's
I?
operating in the world meaningfully and intelligibly is going to be doing so with respect to a metaphysical framework. Okay, meaning that they're operating under some presuppositions, preconceptions as to the nature of reality, what it means for something to be true, foundationally, how it's distinct from that which is not, fundamental relationships between facts, okay,
Okay.
necessity, possibility. There's more, of course, but those are the basics, okay?
Okay.
Now, because they have an attitude towards what those things are foundationally, okay, if they're operating in the world meaningfully, then they're going to be doing so. That whatever answers to those questions they have is going to be in one of two categories. It's going to be either constitutive of the creator creation worldview or the creator creation distinction, or it's going to be not that. Okay, and each worldview is going to be the denial of its negation. Okay, so if I hold to God being ultimate, hold to the God
No,
worldview,
that's
then
a
I'm going
false
to be
dichotomy.
then I'm going to
No.
be no, actually, it's a true dichotomy. If
It's
I
a
believe
false
something is, if I
dichotomy.
believe X, if I believe, you know what the law of excluded. Hold on a second. I have to pick up a call.
Yeah, so I think that's a false dichotomy there. I think the problem is that he's saying that you have to make a choice. I think you can have a framework that's metaphysically bounded, but by mathematics. I don't need a
Oh my
superstitious
god,
being.
just stop talking.
Yeah, dude.
This is. I don't understand. I don't understand the whole conversation here. Can you
Yeah,
be neutral on the existence of God? Of course you can. I'm neutral on the
You can't
existence
be
of
neutral towards the
God.
existence of God.
Either.
But listen,
Excuse
I'll
me.
make it clear to you
Excuse me.
later.
You
Listen,
can.
I'll explain
Excuse
it to
me.
you again.
Jay, he was
I'll explain.
speaking.
I
You
have to
gotta
Excuse
go.
let
I'm
him
me.
telling you.
finish.
I have to
Jay,
listen.
you
I
gotta
have
let him
to
finish.
go. I
Just
Jay,
have to
leave,
Jay,
J.
go.
Robin.
Jay.
Wait, I'll
I'll explain
demonstrate
it
how
to
you
you
can be
later,
neutral
John.
too. I'll
If you want
demonstrate.
to follow, or if you, I'll just.
Are you saying
I'm
that
in the worldviews and
agnosticism
conflict
contains
worlds
a
or
I wasn't
contradiction?
thing, so I can
finished.
explain it to you there
Could
and
I
all
I
that.
finish my
mean,
thought?
Are you saying that
Could I,
agnosticism contains
excuse
a
me. I wasn't
contradiction?
finished.
John,
Can I
stop
finish
talking.
my
Well,
thought?
you're not an interesting person,
Oh,
John. So you
Jay
should shut
dodging
up.
Let's
left.
go.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, you guys
Goodbye.
in all due
Well,
you
I
respect,
guys
was
are
Darth,
ruining
gonna
this,
let
dude.
him
say
Darth, let him speak. John, go ahead.
He's left.
Yeah,
no.
he's
Let's
left.
wait.
You
I can
know, go.
demonstrate how you can be neutral to God. So the claim is that one cannot be neutral to a concept of God if, or whatever concept, if it has the trait, the property of being ultimate, right? That's their claim. So when it comes to the Christian God, which is what they always want to talk about, Christian God has the property of being ultimate. Therefore, you cannot be neutral towards the concept of the Christian God. So we can just test this. And can I have a volunteer? John Lee, are you there?
I'm here.
I want to ask Christian, though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
Matt
fine.
here. I'm here,
Adams.
Tom.
Cool. So I am thinking of a concept. And the only property that I'm going to give you of this concept is that it is ultimate. Now, I want to make it clear. This concept may or may not be the Christian God. Do you understand that it may or may not be the Christian God?
Yes.
I'm positing in a concept that is ultimate. And that's the only property I'm going to give to you. Remember, according to Jrobin, if something has the property of being ultimate, you can't be neutral towards it. Now, I've only given you the one property that you can't supposedly be neutral to. Now, John Lee, do you believe in this concept that I'm thinking of or not?
Cat, got your
Well,
tongue?
I think
if you're
Robin would
talking
say
about
yes.
ultimate concepts, and I believe in God to be that ultimate concept, and your concept is not God, well, then I certainly don't believe in it.
You don't know then.
Any ultimate,
Yeah.
are you neutral towards it or not? Do you believe in it? Do you not believe in it?
No, I am not
He would not believe in
neutral
it.
to a not God ultimate concept.
Any ultimate is defined as God.
So now you're trying to define ultimate as God?
That's just what it means, right?
What
Not
to be
Depends how
honest,
you.
necessarily.
I think Tom said it may or may not be a god. So it's just he's holding something to be ultimate.
J.
What
Robin
is
would
your
assent
position
to
on
that
what?
concept that there is such a thing. So I'm
Can you be
not
What?
sure where this is
neutral
going.
about Tom's claim to something being ultimate, and he's not telling you what the ultimate is?
I assume J. Robin would say no, and that he affirms that there's such a thing. So like I don't
Jay
where does
Robin
this
would
go?
say no to the question of, like, do you believe in this? And he would say no. And
No,
then
he
I
would
would
say he
just say
does
that I'm
believe in
thinking,
it. He does believe in it.
okay, I was thinking about toast as the ultimate.
Eh.
So he believes in toast. He believes in the toast
Okay,
God.
so there's two things going on here, right? I don't think this is going to work because like one, you could say my concept is such that something is an X if and only if it's like ultimate or something, and he's going to say, okay, yeah, I agree that there is such a thing. However, if you're saying I have a particular concept in mind, but I'm not going to tell you what concept that is. I'm just going to tell you one attribute that it has, right? And I'm going to tell you that one attribute that the concept that has in mind includes is like ultimacy or something. And then if you're asking him, well, do you believe in that? Well, he doesn't know how to answer that, right? Because he doesn't know what concept it is you're talking about. To him, it's like
Right.
asking, do you believe in blah blah blah? I mean, it's
Well,
not a well-formed question.
Detroyer.
He,
His
he,
claim is that if a concept has the property of being ultimate, then you can't be neutral to it. We've controlled for all
But
other
you haven't given
variables and
him the
only left that.
concept. You haven't given him the concept.
Yeah, that's the whole
So,
point.
right, that's the whole
okay.
point.
Yeah.
So if he's not accepting the concept, will can
So
someone
then
be
it's not the
neutral on it?
property of being ultimate that makes you not being able to be neutral to it, right?
Right.
It's an
No, but he's still
ignorance
going to
to
say
all
that.
the other factors. Who the fuck cares what he's gonna? Who the fuck cares what he's gonna not say or say? He's not gonna fucking entertain it.
John
This is
just
for the
John
benefit
just
of
did the
everybody
same.
else.
John just did the same thing. He would
I
only
don't.
accept it if it was
I
God.
don't think this.
So it doesn't rely on
Yeah,
the
for any specific
ultimacy of it.
concept, for any specific concept, he's going to be not neutral about that on his view. Most of them, he's
Yeah,
going to say there is no such thing.
he's gonna say I don't know. I have to know more about the concept, which just means that in virtue of the concept being ultimate, he's fucking neutral to it.
No, none of the particular concepts is he going to be neutral to them. He's going to be. He's not going to know. Uh, whether given incomplete information about what concept you have in mind,
But that's what
whether
Robin does.
the concept you have in mind is one he's
It doesn't
affirmed or
matter.
denies. But any of the
Look,
specific ones, he's not
there's
neutral
just a, it's
about.
just a flat out contradiction. You can't be neutral towards something that is ultimate, and then he's
Mm-hmm.
neutral to something that's ultimate
He's
because he
not,
doesn't
but
have the other factors.
no, but the when you say that he's not neutral with respect to something that's ultimate, he's denying that, right? The, saying that when you ask him, given insufficient, like incomplete information, what concept you have in mind, the fact that he can't answer that because he doesn't know what concept you're talking about doesn't mean that there is something that he's neutral regarding, some ultimate concept that he's neutral about, because you haven't given him the concept. Right? He's not neutral
I
about
have.
that concept because it isn't one.
Look, the only property that matters is the property of ultimacy, and he says that's something with the property of ultimacy you can't be neutral towards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but if
He
you don't
agrees
live
with
your
that.
life day to day considering ultimacy, or in no way does it ever enter your psyche, you can be indifferent. If you never consider it, you either consider it or deny it, or you don't care and don't think about it. That's why I think it's a
Yeah.
false dichotomy.
Yeah, well,
Well,
J.
the
Robin
argument
If
that
he
he
says
was
answers the
running
question
here.
and
you
he says,
can't be
Tom, like I
neutral.
can't answer that because you're giving me an incomplete concept, well then it's not true that if something's ultimate you can't be neutral toward.
Presumably, what you're talking about when he says if something is ultimate, you can't be neutral towards it. He's talking about any specific concept that involves ultimacy in it. And if you say, oh, given this incomplete specification of a concept, can you be neutral or not with respect to that? Well, that's like irrelevant because his claim was about specific concepts, not like incomplete specifications of concepts.
J. Robin's
No.
concept is an ultimate mind. That's it. And he claims you can't be neutral to that.
Well, his argument that he sounded like he was running here, and I only caught the tail end of it, was something like everyone, when they make claims or whatever, does so assuming some sort of metaphysical background. And second, that the metaphysical background they assume must entail either that God does exist and is ultimate, or that God doesn't exist and something else is ultimate, or something like that.
What
But
does
that's just like a crazy assumption about what people assume in the
what does
background when they
J.
make claims to
Robin
something.
mean when he suggests that you can't be neutral? I'm not understanding that.
Everyone either um, affirms or denies in some respect that God exists. You can't. You can't. It's false. There's no person. And it's not possible that there is a person that is actually like undecided or neutral with respect to whether God exists.
What about someone
And
who has no concept?
does he give evidence of that claim in some way?
There's a few different arguments. One of them was the sort that Tom was talking about, which is that like the it's kind of built into the property of um, God or the ultimate that um, you can't be neutral about it or something like that. Like everyone, if it exists, then like everyone believes it exists or something like that. And another sort of approach is this sort of worldview approach. Like everyone has a worldview, or everyone has metaphysical presuppositions, and those presuppositions must fall into one of two camps. One category which involves the denial, or entails at least the denial of God existing, and the other camp which entails that God exists. There's another thing that Darth will often run about how like, oh, when you make assertions, are when you reference facts, are you like necessarily referencing the necessity of God? It's like gibberish, but sometimes they'll often say something like that, and they'll say something like, if you say yes, well, then you're committed to God, or if you say no, well, on Christian theism, uh, all facts necessarily reference the necessity of God or something. So like when you're invoking facts and say that you're not doing that, you're implicitly committed to God not existing and so forth. So that's kind of some of the different, none of them are good, but some of the different arguments that they'll run. I guess I didn't phrase that last one as an argument, but it was more like a dichotomy. But anyway, Yeah. So it's like, anyway, maybe the stuff on the concept stuff wasn't so super clear. So like the way I was thinking about it was, um, he wants to say for um, any concept which involves in it like that it has some ultimacy, um, you know, you can't be neutral regarding whether there's something that satisfies that, whether there's something that falls
You
under
cut
the
out,
extension of
so
that
we didn't
concept.
even hear what you said.
Oh, when you're given, can you hear me now or no?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. When you're given given any concept that entails that anything which falls under that concept, like its extension, would be ultimate. You can't be neutral regarding whether there is anything that falls under that concept, whether that concept has an extension. And of course, if you maybe he doesn't put it that way, but that would be like the charitable way to put it. I don't know. And if he says, even though it's still nonsense, and if you say, okay, but look, I tell you that I have a concept and I only like partly specify it, or I tell you that it involves like its extension must be something which is ultimate if there is an extension to it. If that's being interpreted as the whole concept, then of course he's going to say I'm not neutral to that, and there is such a thing because there's something which is ultimate. However, if it's being interpreted or intended as like only a partial explanation of a concept, then because he doesn't know which concept you're talking about, and different concepts which involve ultimacy, he'll have different views on, but none of which he'll be neutral on his view. He doesn't know which concept it is you have in mind, and so can't answer whether he's affirms it or denies it. But that's not inconsistent with him saying that on any specific concept that involves ultimacy, he will not be neutral, because the thing that you presented isn't the concept. You've only presented a
Well, there's a couple problems.
partial
First of all,
specification of it.
I think that that's in direct conflict with his statement that the property of ultimacy is what makes something you're not able to be neutral toward. Now,
Yeah.
secondly, if you're just saying that you have an incomplete concept of this proposed ultimate, then that's just going to work against him too, because like, what is there some kind of like line when you get to this point when we're talking about Jesus that we've now fleshed out a complete concept? It's not going to fucking be the case, right? So I can just say the same thing about Jesus.
No. The point is not how there being a line where it's like complete or incomplete. The point is about whether you're asking whether he assents to the concept you have in mind, and specifically what you tell him about your concept doesn't tell him everything about the concept you have in mind, right? So the idea is like, it's like if I ask you, um, um, I tell you that by X I mean, among other things, uh, X is a person, and suppose you also tell me something like, I'm not neutral with respect to any particular person, whether they're like male or female or something like that, right? And I say I have a concept for a particular person, but I underspecify it, so I don't. So you're not able to understand which person it is that I'm talking about. But I'm telling you that they're a person. It's like, doesn't that contradict your non-neutrality assumption? It's like, no, because if you told me enough to
Yes, it
specify which
does.
person it is that you're talking about, I would be able to tell you which position I have on them. That's
Yeah,
not,
so
there's no
J. Robin's
contradiction
position
there.
is saying something like all the red balls are flat. And I come to him and I'm saying, I have a red ball. Is it flat? And then before J. Robin can answer, Detroyer comes along and he says, hold on a sec. We don't know if it's made by Spalding, if it's new, if it's used, if it has marks on it. Like, we need to answer all these questions. But that's all irrelevant because J.
Oh,
Robin has made the like grandiose statement that all the red balls are flat. I'm just trying to figure out whether or not it's flat. According to J.
oh.
Robin, it would be flat.
Yeah, but if it's working like this, okay. So But the analog to that question would be, I have this. Um, so all the concepts of regarding an ultimacy, you're not neutral or nobody's neutral with respect to. Then you say, I have this ultimacy concept. Are you neutral with respect to it? Of course, he's going to say no, right? He's not going to be neutral with respect to it if he agrees that you're
No,
reporting
but that's the
correctly, that
very
you have a
claim,
concept.
is that the property of being ultimate is what makes you unable to be neutral towards it.
Okay. I mean, there might be
Yeah.
more things going on that explain why someone
Oh,
can't
yeah.
be
Oh, there
neutral
might
with
be.
that.
Why don't you ask
But
him?
why? But why does that matter? Like, suppose he just says that's all it is.
See, but I mean,
I thought there was supposed to be some logical issue in this
maybe I'm just
proposition.
too dumb to understand this, but I could imagine someone saying, there is nothing ultimate. The universe is eternal and goes on forever, and
Yeah.
there's nothing ultimate. I've known people to say that, and I think that they're
Yeah.
earnest in their assumption that that's the case. So what would J. Robin to say to someone like that?
I don't know. He'll say some nonsense about how they're suppressing it or their inconsistent beliefs. I don't know. It's like ridiculous. But um,
Hmm.
I guess like if the way we're understanding the claim, the sort of dialectic here is that you presented a incomplete concept and but you tell him that is true of the concept that you have that involves like an ultimate, and then you ask him, of my concept, are you neutral? Are you neutral with respect to that or not? He'll say, well, no, of course I'm not neutral with respect to it, but he won't be able to tell you, if you haven't fully specified the concept, in which
Yeah, that
way
just
he isn't
means
neutral,
that just
right?
means that it's in virtue of something other than the property of being ultimate, which makes him neutral towards it.
No. It's not. It doesn't need to have anything other than the ultimate. It be involving ultimacy for him to be not neutral about it. But it does require something more than that for him to be not neutral about it in a particular way, right? To affirm it or deny it.
Well, then,
Right? So it's
J.
like,
Robin, like, I mean, you're just like reading into like he could be saying this or could be saying, look, we knew what he talked about. By your own admission, you said you came in at the tail end and you just like didn't really have a very complete understanding of what he was saying. I mean, it's like
yeah. So,
Detroit, take it up with J. Robin. Sorry, bro.
no. It's just these are the things. So what you're saying is partly fair, which is that I might be being like overly charitable or something. And to be honest, I don't listen to J. Robin that much.
Okay, why am I
This is
talking to you
just
about this then, man?
this is just what I get a sense of, what they're kind of trying to say and what would be a charitable interpretation of that. If in
Oh
fact
well,
he wouldn't say
okay,
this,
yeah. I'm not interested in this then.
if he wouldn't say
Yeah.
this, then okay, fine, I guess. But like, I don't know. I guess I would want to consider the most charitable version of what their like argument is or claim is. But I mean, if the point is just regarding showing issues in what he in fact says, if he doesn't say something that I'm saying, then okay, look, he might be making some other mistake. Then yeah, that's fine.
I'm not interested in theory crafting like what J. Robin is saying with you.
Yeah, I mean, uh, I guess if we want to figure out whether he would commit to this or not, that's you have to ask him. Um,
It's
I suspect
pointless.
he probably
It
would,
doesn't matter because people can be
but
neutral.
I also want to figure out sort of what the most charitable interpretation of his claims is, because
I
even
think
if he doesn't really make those claims,
I
It's
think I
just
kind of
honest.
have
so it's like,
a fair idea of what he tries to say. I've had a conversation with him, and I think the mistake he makes is that he assumes that no other worldview or what's it called,
the impossibility to
metaphysics
the
as he likes to
contrary.
call it, yeah, can can um can be without entailing a god or not.
No other worldview can be without. Yeah, so he's going to say that every worldview that someone could have would be one that either entails, and actually, I'll get to it in a second because this is sort of inconsistent with something else he would say. Either entails that, their worldview either entails that there is a God or it entails that there isn't. Um, but he also wants to say that everyone really believes in God. So does that really mean that the worldview they have is one that entails that there's a God? Or are they also, is their worldview like inconsistent? So it entails that there is a God and that there isn't? I don't, um, I mean, these are just further questions. I mean, it might just be just straight forwardly inconsistent because he's arguing that at the same time people can have worldviews which entail that there isn't a God, but also that everyone has a worldview which entails that there is one. Unless he's saying that all those people are just have inconsistent worldviews, then he's being
I
inconsistent.
don't know how he makes that argument, but it seems silly.
Let me ask Jack. Jack's here.
It's
So
just
Jack,
based on revelation.
um,
It's nonsensical.
so I'll just ask Jack really quick. Let me see what he thinks. Jack, so Jrobin's claim is that if something has the property of being ultimate, you cannot be neutral to it, right? And like if you are, it's some kind of violation of like a law of logic or something like that. So the thought experiment that I devised was, okay, I'm thinking of a concept of an ultimate, and it may or not be the Christian God. The only property that I'm going to give you about this concept is that it's ultimate. Now, keep in mind, Jrobin thinks that anything with the property of being ultimate, you cannot be neutral towards. In other words, it is the property of ultimacy. And if something has that property, then you can't be neutral toward it, right? That property alone. Now, I said, I'm thinking of a concept that has the property of being ultimate, and it may or may not be the Christian God. And I ask him if he believes in it. What do you think he's going to say, Jack?
That it may or may not be the Christian God.
Right.
I don't know, because he wants to say that the ultimate. He's going to want to say the ultimate is necessarily God. So in one sense, he has to say that he affirms it. But obviously, I don't know how he's going to show that that necessity would hold. So yeah, I don't really know what he would say. You know,
Right. I think
because
it
he
would just
might
not
want to
answer.
resist it. Yeah, he
Yeah, he'd
might try
probably
to
just
just
not.
resist it.
What would
Well,
be
do
the
you want me to tell
problem with
you,
saying?
Jack, what my response
Yeah,
was
yeah,
on
yeah.
behalf of? So again, blah blah blah. I don't know if he would say this. This might be overly charitable. I'm just like taking the claim that he made, the response that Tom gave, and like a plausible response that he could give. I mean, it's not plausible for other reasons, but whatever. Um, he could say, okay, you've given me. I'll grant that you have a particular concept in mind of some ultimate, and you've told me, and that's all you've told me about your concept, that it involves like anything which falls under that concept would have to be some sort of ultimate, even if it's impossible that anything which is um, not the Christian God could exist. I could still grant this fact about your concept anyway. And in virtue of that, whatever concept it is you have, I'm going to not be neutral with respect to that. So, if, for example, if your concept is the Christian God, well, I'm going to affirm it because I won't be neutral with respect to it. If the concept is, toast, I'm not going to be neutral to that because I deny it. And so, whatever it is, even though I don't know which one it is, I know that I'm not going to be neutral with respect to it. So I can say, yeah, I'm not neutral with respect to whatever concept it is you have in mind. However, given that he doesn't know which concept it is you have in mind, he's not going to be able to tell you in which way he's not neutral. He's not going to be able to tell you, I'm not neutral, and I affirm that there is such an ultimate, because he doesn't know, given
Right. He's going
since
to
you
be
haven't
neutral
told
to an
him
ultimate. Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty fucked up.
which
I guess you
ultimate it
can't
is
do
you're
it.
talking about. So any ultimate, he's not going to be neutral with respect to, but he won't be able to tell you um, whether what you have in mind is the sort of thing that he affirms or denies.
Well, I guess he made a really stupid statement about saying that the property of ultimacy is what makes one not be able to be neutral to. If he is neutral to the question, that just means that he's appealing to other properties other than ultimacy to decide whether or not he's neutral towards it. Jack, why is he
No,
trying doing this?
no, because the other properties aren't necessary in order for him to determine whether he's neutral with respect to it.
They
They
are if he's
are
saying I
necessary.
can't answer the question about the ultimate concept without knowing the other
No,
properties. Yeah, they
no, no, no.
yeah, they are they
No,
are
you're
they are necessary.
misunderstanding. He has enough information to tell you that he's not neutral with respect to it. He doesn't have enough information to tell you in which way he's not neutral. And
Yeah.
so the other property is going to be relevant to whether he in fact denies it or affirms it. But they're not going to be relevant or necessary is the fact of whether he's neutral with respect to it or not. He's already given enough information to determine
But
that.
Tom, I answered your question exactly the way Detroyer said. I said if it is the case that the ultimate that you're conceiving is not God, then I'm not neutral to that either.
You're just neutral. You're not affirming or denying. Yeah, you're basically playing neutrality.
When people ask
No, I'm not.
Rob, when people ask Jrobin, do you mean the Christian God? He refuses to answer. He says, we're not doing that right
Right,
now.
but
We're
you're
just
not.
talking about an ultimate mind. So he
Wait,
is
wait.
for John
Hold on a
to
second. I
Does
want to
to
I want to hear Jack's take on this. What are you think so far, Jack?
I'm still trying to understand what you two are disagreeing about, because Detroit is just saying that
back.
whatever it is, he's not going to be neutral to it, right? It's just that he's not clear on what it is when it's just posed as an ultimate, and so he can't
Yeah,
tell
that
you whether he's for or against, affirms it
right.
or
He's
denies.
being neutral towards it. Yeah, he's
no,
being
I
neutral
think
no.
you're
towards the
He's
concept.
equivocating
he's
on.
being neutral to towards another question, right? So the other question is, of course, your question is, do you affirm or do you deny that the um, ultimate I have in mind exists? He doesn't. He can't answer that. So in that sense, he's going to be neutral with respect to that question, right? But that's not the same as being neutral with respect to an ultimate, because in fact, as it turns out, that concept you have in mind, and he will affirm this, whatever that is, he has a determinate view, right, on whether it exists or not. He just doesn't know which one it is that you're talking about. And
Right,
of
but he
course, he's
knows.
being
Well,
neutral on
look, it's
which
just
one
a
it is that you're
direct. It's
talking
just a
about.
contradiction, right?
That's not.
If something has the property of being ultimate, you can't be neutral towards it. Something is presented which only has the property of being ultimate, and he's neutral towards it. It's
No,
a
he's
contradiction.
not, because you haven't presented it. Like, look,
Yes, I
All
have.
right, we
let
pass.
me put it this way. No, you've only partly described it. So let me put it this way, right? On
Right, so
his
it's not the
view,
property of
every
ultimate which determines whether or not someone can be neutral about something.
no, it is.
It's
It's
other
just it's not.
properties.
That property alone doesn't determine whether he
Just
affirms it
agree to
or denies it,
disagree, and you
but
guys are going to keep
it determines
going
whether
back and
he's
forth.
neutral with respect to it. Let me put it like this. He says for any concept which involves ultimacy, right? Um, I'm not neutral with respect to
This
that.
is, by the way,
If you're
you like from whole cloth, like rewriting his claim. But okay.
well, I don't know if it's rewriting. I think it's like a plausible, if maybe overly charitable. I don't know interpretation of it.
You're straight up theory crafting, but whatever. Go ahead.
I don't think completely. But anyway, I already made that clarification at the outset. If he says that for any concept which involves ultimate, he's not neutral with respect to that concept. Now, if you're saying that, well, when he answers, I don't know, like whether I affirm or deny the, I don't know how to answer your question. I can't. I'm sort of neutral on that on that question. You're saying that implies that there is a concept that involves ultimate that he's neutral with respect towards. But what is it, right? Because the question you've asked him is not a question that entails that he's neutral with respect to any particular concept. You haven't given it to him, right? So it's like if I said, if I asked you, oh, I'm thinking about a concept of an ultimacy. Um, is the concept I'm thinking about one that's the Christian God or not the Christian God? Of course, he can be neutral with respect to that because that's not the same as, and it would not entail that there is some specific um, concept which involves ultimacy that he's neutral about, right? He's just neutral about what it is that you're asking him or what it is that you have in mind. But that's the exact same thing going on here, right? It's just, the details are slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, whatever. Whether he would, again, yeah, you're right. He might not. I'm blah blah blah. I might be doing overly charitable theory crafting. Blah blah blah. I'm not sure. I like some of the things I said. He definitely would commit to. Whether he would be able to um, respond in this way, and whether he would respond in this way, that's another question. He says a lot of stupid shit. So you're probably right that I'm being like overly charitable. But I just want to kind of explore the, I don't know, strongest version of the response that he could give, I guess.
Yeah,
And
especially when the
you're
script
right that
starts
that
with
might,
like what's
Yeah.
the contradiction between like an ultimate, or like he only wants to talk about a generic concept of just like this thing's ultimate and it's a mind. When you ask
Yeah.
for any other like attributes of this concept, you are told that they're unnecessary, right? Because the attributes given are enough to like be neutral about or whatever the fuck, you know. I mean, it's just like I don't know why you're like being so charitable with the J. Robin Darth Dawkins take. I really don't understand.
No. But it's that anything that has those attributes is enough. Like, will be such that he's not neutral about it. But whether he affirms it or denies it, right, will depend on further attributes. But like, regardless what those attributes are, he's still not neutral. So that's the idea of what I'm getting at. He already knows, given those attributes alone, that he's not going to be neutral. But the way in which he isn't neutral, right, by affirming it or denying it, that he'll need to know further information. But again, okay, blah blah blah. I don't know if he would understand this, let
Yeah,
alone say
then
this.
the
So
atheist can just say the
whatever.
same thing, right? But he won't accept that. So that's obviously not what he's talking about, or he's just being like wildly
All
inconsistent.
right, what would the atheist say? Yeah.
They would want to know more.
Yeah, he won't.
Give me the other
Yeah,
attributes so I can tell you whether or not like I believe in this thing. He won't do it.
Oh no, no.
he
But
won't
when
even
he
say it's
asks,
the
I
Christian
think
All
when
right,
he
God.
look,
asks,
Detroit,
We all know
Detroit.
that
Let me just put it this
he won't.
way. Let me put it this way. The room has grown tired of this, and I have
okay,
grown tired of this.
all right,
I, in particular, do not want to talk to you about this anymore.
Okay, moving on
all right,
then.
all right.
Moving on. JK, that's a particularly terrifying profile pic.
Oh,
Do you save yourself?
I just thought that was an interesting conversation. But if if I posit that I have this ultimate, right? Um, well, J. Robin doesn't believe in it because I'm going to say it's not a mind, and he believes in an ultimate with a mind. So by saying, every fact he invokes is going to be dependent on his ultimate. So he's going to be denying my ultimate. Surely at that point, can't you just ask him for an argument for why the ultimate that doesn't have a mind doesn't exist?
Yeah, he'll just start saying things about how, oh, if it doesn't have a mind, it can't ground intelligibility, or
Yeah, but that's
yeah,
just a claim.
whatever.
Yeah, but that's just a claim.
Yeah,
His ignorance isn't my problem.
Why don't we talk about
yeah,
something else when someone that we're talking about can answer for themselves? Let's like have a real conversation and not a metaphysical conversation about someone who's not in the room.
Well, because this doesn't necessarily just apply to J. Robin. Like
All right, cool.
yeah.
presups
It
take
applies to
this approach.
Darth as well.
So friction, can you be neutral on something that you don't know information about?
Can I be neutral on something that I don't know
Of
information
course, he's gonna
about?
say yes.
In general, yeah.
All right, cool.
If you think that we can be neutral on everything, um, then that's going to be trivially true.
You know,
So
I didn't bring this up, but like this is kind of like important, but it's not really clear what they mean, like when they say you can't be neutral, like because they'll never
yeah,
answer any questions when it comes to like, well, what do you mean by like they're referring to some like um modality of possibility, and that's like not really clear, but we kind of get it, you know. But it's a little bit
yeah,
insightful because I've heard Darth give an example. So the example that he's given is he says, like, for example, you can't be neutral about whether or not you're dead or alive, right? So in that sense, it seems like what he means when he says you can't be neutral towards X is like being neutral towards X would mean that you're being irrational, right? So
mm,
that's very different than like it's not possible for you to be neutral. That's just now it just seems like he's saying like, okay, if you're being neutral towards God in the way I presented it, you're being irrational. Well, that can be easily fleshed out, and that doesn't mean that it can't happen because people believe in contradictory things all the time, right? Knowing it,
yeah.
not knowing it.
No, that's correct. So there's 2 points there worth exploring. One is on the modality, like if you ask them, what modality you have in mind? Is it something logical? Is there's some logical error, like impossibility in someone believing um, or affirming that they're neutral in this regard, um, or is there some logical error in them being neutral in some sense? That seems like implausible. If as you say, he turns and just says, it turns out to be just that he thinks that someone who um, is neutral is like being irrational in some respect. That's definitely a weakening of the claim. He might, and he don't, I don't, yeah, he wouldn't want to endorse
Yeah,
that.
I don't see him like, even though I think that's what it reduces to, I don't see him like accepting that, because it does sound like a very weak claim. And then also, not only is it a weak claim, but then he has to explain like why it's irrational.
Yeah, yeah. So, and he wouldn't be able to do either. I mean, at best, he could say something like, well, it's going to be irrational for the person who like understands the notion of God, which is such that um, if it exists, then everyone believes that it exists. And, if you're able to kind of infer from that, well, if I am neutral, then I don't believe that it exists, but that would entail that it doesn't exist. And so I can't, so I, it would follow from my being neutral that it doesn't exist. And, if I adjust my beliefs accordingly, I should think that, well, I should take one of the other options, that it does exist, or that it doesn't. Um, you know, someone could play that game, I guess. Although on his view, it's a bit more complicated because he wants to permit um, the possibility of like suppressed beliefs, like these, I don't know, beliefs that you have but aren't like consciously aware of, or even on like significant introspection, you aren't able to bring into awareness. If you think that it's maybe questionable whether there are such things, but if you think there are, like, um, that opens the door to another response, which is that I can be neutral in a sense, whether regard to my suppressed beliefs. Like I don't know whether I have the sort of suppressed belief that you're talking about, but with respect to like my beliefs that I'm aware of, I'm neutral. Right? Those beliefs or whatever that I have are neutral on this question. And that's what I can be talking about when I talk about being neutral or being an agnostic. Whether I have some suppressed belief that isn't neutral, okay, I mean, maybe. But I feel like he should be able to, on his view about like suppressed beliefs and stuff, that should be something he would allow. Um, but yeah, anyway,
Yeah,
just
I
another.
I mean this is the way I look at it. The approach. There's a God worldview, and then there's a not God worldview. But within the not God worldview, there's an infinite amount of not God worldviews versus the one Christian God
Do you mean
worldview,
a Christian
as
God
No,
worldview?
but
Say,
you're already
as he
building into
presents it.
that.
do you mean a Christian
But
God
but
worldview?
so
Because
so
you could have a
yeah, but
Muslim God worldview,
yeah,
Jewish,
but
which
hang on, 80. So what I'm trying to say is, so when the question is asked, what is the contradiction in the not God worldview? Well, it depends on what the worldview would be. And so when what they attempt to do is, because there are so many different kinds of not God worldviews, they examine the individual's particular worldview that does not include a God,
do
and I
you
think
mean
upon examination that it's not tenable or it's
when you
irrational.
say the God worldview? Do you mean the Christian God worldview?
That is their claim. It must be the Christian God
Right. So
worldview,
we're
as I
talking
heard them
about
argue it. Yeah,
so
Yeah,
their idea is there's a Christian God worldview and a not Christian God worldview,
that
right?
that
And
that is the argument.
yeah, but it's already off to a false start, right? Because the presumption is that every worldview that someone has or can have falls neatly into one of two categories. One which entails like that there is a God, and one which entails that there isn't. But that's kind of ruling it out at the outset, that the worldviews people can have are going to be, they could be undecided on whether there is such a God. And um, if we think that his arguments against like that potential neutrality don't work, and I think they don't work, obviously, um, then this assumption about worldviews fitting into those two categories neatly is just going to be a mistake.
Yeah, but the Troyer, I mean, what I've noticed them do is like it is specifically the Christian God. It's not an atheism theism situation. For example, I've seen them on numerous occasions. It's the Christian God worldview and the not Christian God worldview, which includes Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, whatever the case is. And so they're anxious to engage in the not Christian God worldview, even though sometimes with atheists specifically they won't include the word Christian. They'll just say not God, not God. But I do think that they're more specifically centered on not Christian God worldview,
There's
and they
no
will
Well,
engage other
but
theists.
this
there's
is
no
something that Tom could talk about, which is that they'll switch whatever claim it is they want to defend or want you to attack, where it's convenient for them to do so. They'll want to be defending the weaker claim, and they'll want you to be, um, attacking their weaker claim. But they'll also want to like affirm their stronger claim and think that like anything and claim that anything which um, denies that will lead to incoherence as well. But they won't try to defend either of those views typically.
Yeah, please. I'm sorry. I I had to go the other time. I was trying to make a clarification. I think it's the major problem of what he's saying, and it's the idea that in the not God worldview, a not God worldview does not necessarily preclude a God, and that's what I was trying to let him know. Like it's
Oh,
like and I was explaining to him that it could be the case that as an atheist, yeah, when I make decisions on what exists or what doesn't exist, I don't consider, or what the case may be, like what is true or what is false, right? I don't like necessarily. I don't think about like an ultimate mind to ground these things or whatever that means. But that doesn't mean I preclude it in my worldview, in the sense that like I could see
yeah, but
something and assess why I think it exists without assessing if an ultimate mind exists. Does not mean that I'm asserting that this thing that I think exists it exists precluding a god. It could be the case that a god, like it's like, because a god is almost like magic. It's like talking about spirits. Like, okay, I believe my car is moving because I put fuel in it and I'm doing whatever I need to do. But it does not preclude that they are
yeah,
not like invisible stuffs pushing the car. Do
well
you get
they're
what I'm
gonna
saying? And that's what I was
they're
trying
gonna
to get him
I
to.
get what you're saying, but they're gonna say it does preclude. So when you say not God worldview, that might be potentially ambiguous between a worldview or a class of worldviews which do not affirm that there's a God, and a worldview or a class of worldviews which affirm that there isn't a God. And they want to say, and if you're saying that, like, well, but yeah, when I have the quote unquote not God worldview, it could be the first sort. I'm not necessarily denying that there's God, but I'm not affirming that there's one. They're going to say that that class of worldviews isn't a legitimate class of worldviews. In some sense, we can't have that a worldview of that sort.
Why would you say that
But
when I personally
what
have
sense
that
that is and
world?
how he demonstrates that is, obviously is like nonsense.
Do you get what I'm saying? I'm saying that like that worldview he will say he will assert you can't have is exactly what I have, and that is the agnostic position. So like now you're just as he's
Yeah,
just
but
asserting. If he's going to say that, he's just asserting without making any arguments, because that is
yeah,
exactly my worldview.
well, his arguments are bad, but he'll say that you claim to have that worldview which neither asserts or requires that there is a God, nor asserts nor requires that there isn't. And he's going to say, no, it's not possible that you actually have that worldview. It's not. But I mean,
It
I'm
is,
in agreement with you that his support for
yes,
that is
because
going to be
that's
bad,
just
but
an
that's going to be,
assertion that I can't without any arguments against what I said.
yeah. I mean, he'll like those arguments. It's just they're not good. But that whole anyway, that whole like I don't know if I want to say code switching, but like switching which claim it is that they're making for like rhetorical purposes, something like very common among them. Because they'll they'll start. requesting the atheist to, prove that there is no ultimate or something like that, or to prove that there's no ultimate that's a mind or something like that. And then when, like, if they fail to do so, that somehow vindicates their own specific view of the Christian God. And then when they're requested to demonstrate their specific view, they'll, like, that's where they turn around and just do that sort of game on the atheist. Well, prove that there's no ultimate. Anyway, that sort of thing happens all the time. But if you actually explored it, like that, anything which denies like all the specific tenets of their specific faith that they think is necessary for intelligibility and whatever else, if they were to make an argument for that, that's just like insane. Like you're gonna have an argument which,
Oh yeah, that is
like,
that's like the that's I don't know why people don't just like harp on that more because it's just so difficult to not
that's where you
any
get the
one of the
waitress,
properties is gonna
not
is
knowing the order when like if God reveals one falsehood one time, like
right.
that's what they have to say is like entailed on their view. But it's like there's no argument for this. It's just like crazy.
Yeah, any one of those properties is like I mean like I'm trying to just like come up with stuff if I'm just trying to brainstorm like how would it what could I even say and whether or not it's true or not. I mean I can't even come up it's just such a monumental task. And then you've got like a dozen of these properties, it's just like it's crazy.
Yeah, and in fact, it could be even more if they think that like the like all of Scripture is the truth of all that is like necessary. Are you going to commit to like the fact that Jesus was baptized by like this person is like a necessary precondition for intelligence? That sort of thing. Like
Right.
then you're going to have hundreds and like thousands of claims, each of which is necessary for intelligibility and so on. And it's just like anyway. I feel like this is a horse that's been
Yeah.
beaten so many times.
But I mean, I've just been observing a lot of the interactions. I do think it's effective in um, forcing a person to commit to a worldview that does not include God, and then support that view. And I find that people struggle. Not to say that that demonstrates somehow that God exists or their particular God exists, but I do think that it causes a person who is sometimes uh, fixated on the proof of a God rather than supporting their own worldview. I think it does cause people to reflect upon their own position.
I mean, it might in fact cause that, but sometimes I think typically an error though, um, because the arguments they're making in order to cause that reflection are typically bad. Yeah, but people can be caused to
Yeah,
reflect or do something based on bad arguments. That happens all the time.
but that's the exact opposite thing you said earlier, John, because you said that your faith precludes you from looking at your own worldview.
I said what, Jeff? That my own faith, what?
Your faith precludes you from looking at your own worldview skeptically.
I I don't recall what I said was that my faith prevents me from being skeptical of my own worldview. I think it
What's the
violates
difference
the laws
between
of
that and what he just
non-contradiction
said?
to be. I think it violates the laws of non-contradiction to be simultaneously have a propositional attitude and be skeptical of that propositional attitude. That's what I was trying to say, John.
You you, you think contradictory beliefs violate the law of non-contradiction?
I'm just saying that it violates the laws of non-contradiction if I have a faith and a proposition to be true, and simultaneously skeptical of that proposition to be true.
Don't you think people do that?
Isn't that just agnosticism?
You think people kind of have inconsistent beliefs, right, John? Like,
Yeah, no, I
but people
agree with
having
you.
inconsistent
Okay,
beliefs is
so
entirely
the
possible.
law of non-contradiction is in fact not a law, and in fact it's violated all the time.
Thus, cognitive dissonance.
Yeah,
John, what are you
well,
saying, bro?
I mean, if you want to say that I have contradictory beliefs, I mean, I can acknowledge it. I think personally, I think
Yeah,
every
that's
human
fine.
being
That's like
on
a
earth does.
colloquial sense of like, but you're like literally invoking the law of non-contradiction.
Yeah, in a sense of uh, believing a proposition to be true and being skeptical of that very belief to be true. I
Right.
mean,
You understand it's not
I,
like a
I
violation of the law of non-contradiction though, right?
right, but what I'm saying is that is not to
That's a
say that we
degree
don't
of
have contradictory
certainty.
beliefs. But what I am saying is that if we do have contradictory beliefs, they are by definition contradictory. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah, but being skeptical of your beliefs isn't a contradiction, right? You can have like a probabilistic kind of approach or position.
in having inconsistent beliefs doesn't violate the law of non-contradiction, because it's not like you believe something and you don't believe it or something like that. If that were the case, then that would be a violation of non-contradiction. Um, but believing something and believing its negation, that's that's not a contradiction in itself. You're believing that there's some two things which contradict each other, but whatever.
It's a sliding scale.
Well, let's just say this, Jeff. What I meant to say was that it is not reasonable to have a belief in a proposition to be true and simultaneously, in the same sense, at the same time, believe or be skeptical of that proposition to be true.
All right, is it reasonable
That
to,
just sounds like
John, is it reasonable to contribute money to your 401k or 403b?
What was that, Jeff?
Is it reasonable to contribute money to a 401k or 403b?
you're really quiet, Jeff.
Yeah, yeah. Why would it not be reasonable to contribute money to a 401k?
Well, can you believe that you're going to survive to enjoy that 401k money, but be skeptical of the ultimate, like that you ultimately will survive?
I think it's irrational to believe you're not going to enjoy the benefits of the 401k and contribute to the 401k.
Yeah, I agree with that, but that's not what I asked, right?
What was your question then?
It sounds like you're saying that you can't believe something without being certain of it, right?
No, I never mentioned the word certainty. I just mentioned the word propositional attitude.